two of the richest, wealthiest men in American sport, still so desperate for it.
You wish you were covering this, don't you?
I wish it was there.
Yeah,
Can't believe they're not showing it.
There you go.
The banter is going to be hilarious, Richie.
Are they going to be? I presume they're going to be mic'd up.
Oh no, that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing. The hilarious bants and the cringy Phil Mickelson overselling of it is going to continue onto the course.
There are no bants like Tiger bants.
Can I just intervene here? More important matters. I got a tweet yesterday from a guy who calls himself Custardy Crumble. Okay. Now, I assume he's a man because women are generally a lot more sensible. But he said on Twitter, he says you try to come across as Mr. Uber cool, but I've seen you enough of the ball, and you laugh like a hyena at everything stupid that Joe and the boys say.
You do?
So, yeah. So I said to my wife, "Do I laugh like a hyena?" And she said, "Yeah, you do." Do I laugh like a hyena?
I don't think I've ever heard you laugh.
Oh, now I feel a real pressure to make him laugh.
Somebody
send us in something funny so we can get him to laugh.
Come across as
Mick McCarthy's the next Ireland manager. What do you make of that?
So this is
the report. If anyone's missed it, the reports have come out that McCarthy is more than likely going to hold talks with the FAI over the weekend with the expectation that it should be fairly straightforward and he will be back as Republic of Ireland manager.
Yeah, well, like the last time I saw you, we were in a taxi in our house around midnight on Monday.
Oh, aye.
And things moved along very quickly since then.
In the taxi?
Certainly
that made me laugh.
Oh, you boys.
But anyway, you talk about Mickelson's bands. Jesus. But this to me smacks of they want to get somebody in place by the draw.
Why? I don't understand this.
I think they want to. I think they feel they have to calm things down. They have to sell whatever comes out of the draw very quickly, start selling tickets, start attracting corporate sponsors. And I think this really goes against Stephen Kenny because the mentality of the people at the top of the FAI, he's not box office. And they're consumed with this idea you have to have a name. That's why I think Robbie Keane's name has been thrown in as well. That they haven't learned the lesson that dream teams are horseshit, that they want to do it all over again.
What are you talking about? Staunton Robson was just perfect.
But I don't understand. This feeds into the conversation with Kilban last night, and Kev was talking about the respect that Mick McCarthy would instantly have more respect than Stephen Kenny would. Now, not to say that Stephen Kenny couldn't go on and earn it from the players, but that initial bounce you want, Mick McCarthy is more likely to get it. And you're saying he's more box office. It's Mick McCarthy we're talking about. It's not Jurgen Klopp who's walking into this dressing room.
I know, but in an Irish context, like this is...
Is Mick still box office?
Well, he is. Like the guy who was called Captain Fantastic, led Ireland to the first World Cup. He is a guy who qualified Ireland for a World Cup, and
only two men have done that.
Only two men have done that. So in an Irish context, like, you know, if you go in any other context, you can say he's managed Ipswich Town, Wolves, Sunderland. You know, those are clubs that a Tony Pulis would manage.
Yeah, but
it's the way we're getting carried away.
But most recently, Wolves and Sunderland, or Wolves and Ipswich, sank like stones after he left.
Yeah, and you have to put into context his job. Like I have a lot of time for Mick, but I think Mick would come to this with a hell of a lot of baggage. And people forget very easily how fraught things were for a lot of his time in charge. Like there's an interesting...
There was definitely one incident that stands out in my mind.
But even long before that, like the one thing about it, going through his whole 6 years, he was haunted by Roy Keane. Like his very first game against Russia, Roy Keane was sent off. Then the friendlies at the end of that season, he went missing and he turned up at a rained-off cricket match, and he was supposedly his captain. Then... he was at the end of that first campaign or the second campaign, he did his cruise ship. They'd probably qualified if he hadn't done the cruise ship. Then you had all the Saipan thing, obviously, and that after Saipan, even though they did well in 2002, the two books came out and it all exploded up again. People actually forget about that summer. The summer of 2002, all the talk was Ireland could challenge for the European Championships, not just to qualify, but to win it. Because South Korea had got the World Cup semi-finals. I think Turkey had got the semi-finals, hadn't they?
Yeah. We should have beaten Spain.
Yeah, and Greece...
Kilban.
Yeah, and Greece went on to win Euro 2004. So it was a time when things seemed to be opening up. So things went sour really quickly. Like his reputation soared after 2002 World Cup, and he was gone after two qualifiers then. And I think you see things with Mick. At times you've seen it in press conferences and when he's on punditry duty. He brings up stuff from the past. He remembers a hell of a lot. And there's grudges. I think, you know, there's going to be bad times with Ireland in the next couple of years. And I think a lot of the stuff will come up again with him.
The reaction we have had on our Off the Ball Twitter account has almost been overwhelmingly negative to these reports.
Twitter's a negative place, and
I fully understand that. And listen, it's not a full reflection. And I felt last night that no matter who comes in, you're going to have a sellout at the Aviva Stadium for the first match, and there will be that initial bounce. I just wonder, looking at that, if people are actually going to be that excited by the thought of going back.
Well, I think people. Again. Yeah, I think people do want. Like back then, like when Mick took the job, he was 37 years old. When Ireland next play, he'll be 60 years old. You know, that's not being aged, but I think people are looking for just a new face, for something different. And a lot of people have jumped onto the Stephen Kenny thing, who never watched Dundalk play, which is really odd. Like, if you look at all the reaction, everyone says Stephen Kenny got the job, and you think, are there 50,000 people going to Dundalk games every week? Like, who are all these people?
No, but I think, listen, the statistics bear out that they've won the league for the last 5 years. They've just won it scoring more goals.
But I'm not dismissing it. I think he should be definitely part in the running for it.
No, and there is an unknown factor to Stephen Kenny, which is suddenly the level of press interest, of supporter interest, is unlike anything he's ever faced before, and the level of scrutiny.
And I think there's an important point there as well. Like, if you go back to Brian Kerr's, Brian Kerr's the last manager who came from a League of Ireland background. And Brian, a lot of I think he found the media side, even though he's had a huge career in the media since then, but he found the media side of it very hard. And I think part of it was he tried. Yeah, I think part of it was he tried to distance himself very quickly, because obviously, as a League of Ireland manager and underage manager, everybody had his number. They talked to him regularly, and a lot of journalists, I think, and a lot of people in the media assumed things would be the same when he moved into the international job, and he felt he couldn't do that. So he was keeping people at bay, and I think he found it hard. The hard press he got, or when the pressure comes along in Ireland around a bad result, which it does. Like, there's a huge coverage in Irish media. And the difference is Brian was living here. Trapattoni could head off to Milan, and Trapattoni couldn't barely speak English anyway, so he didn't know what people were saying or writing about him anyway. Didn't care. Mick could go back to England. Jack Charlton could go back to England. But if Stephen Kenny is living here, it put more pressure on you. And I think that's the situation Brian found himself in,
I really hope there's a live stream of Mick McCarthy personally cleaning out Roy Keane's desk on Monday morning, texting column to 53106. That's the other side of this. Listen, I'm not here to advise the people in Virgin or in any organisation of what they should do. But if Mick gets the gig, I'm getting Roy in on punditry first night out.
Could they afford him?
Well, he doesn't probably need it right now. If Mick gets the job, I won't be renewing my season ticket. Going back and getting an average at best championship manager is such a retrograde step.
Yeah.
What other level are we going to get?
Well, some of the names that have been linked this evening. Jurgen Klinsmann.
Yeah.
Jurgen Klinsmann.
Carlos Queiroz is genuinely interested. No, I got word of this today because I thought it was a flyer. And he's somebody who's qualified. Ran for 2 World Cups. He took in South Africa, took World Cup, and Portugal the World Cup. And I think a lot of people...
Looking at another Trapattoni-esque personality there, though.
Yeah, but I'm not saying he should be, but I'm saying people would be surprised the amount of interest in this job. That's what I'm saying.
But who else is clamouring? I'm not shooting down the speculation, but who else is clamouring for a Carlos Queiroz? What clubs are going for?
I'm not.
What clubs are going for Mick McCarthy?
Mick has been out of work for a few months.
But that's what I'm saying. This is the level we're at. We're at the level of people who are out of international gigs, people who've been out of club management for, several months. Like when you see Allardyce's name mentioned, saying Moyes.
Like, to be honest now, there was no clamour for clubs for Gareth Southgate.
I'm not saying that's not the issue, but when the texter writes in going a mid-level championship manager, that's where we're at. That is where we're at.
Yeah, well, I think the big issue here, or one of the bigger issues, Nathan, is his coach. Like back in the day when you had piggyback races at Ireland training, and the yellow eye had a Macedonia jersey, and you had Ian Taff Evans as coach. And a lot of people weren't particularly impressed with this coach, and he had Terry Connor for a lot of his club career, who I don't think would be an inspiring choice if he brought him in. There's talk of Robbie Keane, who has no experience. Like, I think the coach is vital. That's why if you had somebody like Lee Carsley, who's really highly rated, or Stephen Reid or Mark Kennedy, somebody who's making their mark, a young, hungry coach, it would be great. Yeah,
that there is a role, you'd imagine, for Robbie Keane in this. You almost hope for Robbie's sake that he's not been hung out to dry. If he gets, say, the assistant manager's job, that...
But why should there be a role for Robbie?
Why should he
why not? Because he's
not
experienced of our greatest
enough.
Ever players. No, I'm not saying he needs...
But so was Roy Keane, and
he was a dreadful assistant manager. Roy Keane was possibly our best player in the last 30 years. He was an appalling assistant manager.
I don't think there's a problem having Robbie Keane around and learning the ropes with other more experienced coaches. The worry would be that he would be seen as the coach.
But let him go off and get another gig.
Little or no experience.
Let him go and get experience and then come back.
Arguably. But if he is going to be given a gig...
Why?
Well, you could ask why. Because of his name, because of his reputation. That's what I'm saying. You're talking about the dream team. And he's thrown out in front to do the Wednesday press conference like Roy Keane was, when really, whoever's the assistant manager... I don't want to see them.
That's ultimately where, like, I don't
want to see them for the next
10 years of name and reputation.
Yeah.
Trapattoni was hired on name and reputation. We've had 10 years of managers saying that our players aren't good enough.
Marco Tardelli was in with him because of his name and reputation, because he scored a goal in the World Cup final.
Marco was a great man, though.
Marco was a brief manager.
Marco was always a joy as a journalist. You could just rhyme off names and eventually you'd have a dig at somebody. It was gold dust.
But everything is done on reputation and not necessarily on what they can actually bring to the job.
Lads, I don't get the lack of respect thing with Stephen Kenny. Arsene Wenger was totally unknown when he came to Arsenal. Players had no idea who he was, but they quickly realised he was a great coach. Surely Irish players would do the same with Kenny, says David Imrahini.
Yeah, because I listened to you and Kevin last night. And
was I right?
Don't, Kieran.
No, I'm not. You're kind of right. No, but I just don't think... I don't think players would have any difficulty accepting Stephen Kenny. I know Kevin was saying, the likes of Camo died, etc. had never heard of him. I don't think that matters, to be honest. I think there's no superstars there anymore. It's not like when Mick was last at the job, and you had Robbie Keane and Damien Duff and Roy Keane and Shay Given and there was a lot of Steve Finnan who won Champions League. There's no players like that. Like, even our big players now, Robbie Brady, Jeff Hendricks, Seamus Coleman, they're not superstars by any means. So I don't think it's Stephen Kenny to be any issues with him, to be honest.
No, I remember Ireland playing Spain off the pitch in 2002 under Mick. We haven't seen that since. Give him a chance. So we'll end this part of the conversation on a pro-Mick slant. Any breaking news, obviously, we will bring it to you. And John Giles coming up at 7:30. The Newsround brought to you this evening with Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products. 53106, the text number, live on all our social channels as well. What do you got for us, Richie?
Will we begin with talk of Big Mick?
Go for it.
Yeah, it's believed negotiations, as you say, between McCarthy and the FAI over the vacant Republic of Ireland manager's job could successfully conclude over the weekend. He's in line to assume the position for a second time. The FAI believed to be keen on making a swift appointment following yesterday's departure of Martin O'Neill. However, Dundalk manager Stephen Kenny is not believed to be entirely out of the running. Speaking with the Dundalk Democrat today, Kenny says he doesn't have a PR strategy in place nor a dream management team to go with him, but says it would be the ultimate honour to take the job. Current Ireland midfielder Conor Hourihane joined today's Keith Andrews show on OffTheBall.com and was asked who he'd prefer as manager.
I've been keeping an eye on it, and of course, obviously Cork City and Dundalk would have been the top two sides in the last couple of years, and being from Cork, obviously I keep an eye on the Cork City results all the time. I've been keeping an eye on it, and of course, obviously Cork City and Dundalk would have been the top two sides in the last couple of years, and being from Cork, obviously I keep an eye on the Cork City results all the time. They've gone head to head quite a few times, so I've heard only good things about Stephen. So I know he's a front runner at the minute, and same with Mick. I've obviously played against the teams a lot of the years over here in the championship, so two good names, and whoever it is, hopefully it's an exciting time now, and hopefully whoever comes in can get the best out of the squad, because like I've said over this interview a few times, there is quality in the squad without a doubt.
Slightly more political answer from Conor Hourihane today.
Yeah, we'll play you the full interview with Conor Hourihane on the football show. We did ask him about Matt Doherty's comments about the training or the lack thereof of coaching, and he didn't go in two-footed on O'Neill and Keane. He'd obviously heard, I'd say, what Matt Doherty said and decided the better of it, but certainly didn't disagree, and did say that there was a definite difference between the quality of the coaching at club level and what they were getting at international level, which is fairly damning. It's quite striking. I haven't heard a single person say that Martin O'Neill was hard done by. Not one.
No, I don't think I have.
You'll be waiting.
Yeah, I think you'll be waiting. I think it was pretty obvious. Like there's a really damning stat. Ireland had fewer attempts in goal than any other team in Europe in the Nations League. Even the Andorras, San Marinos, etc. It's just, and like not even a corner the other night, let alone the shot on target.
Not even a corner. Yeah. So Joe Schmidt.
Yeah.
Will he stay or will he go?
That is the question. He'll announce whether he's staying or going early next week. The Kiwis' current deal as Ireland head coach expires at the end of next year's World Cup, and it has been speculated he's ready for a return to his native New Zealand. Schmidt says he'll be as pleased as anyone to have his future finally resolved.
It's a decision that will probably not be finalised till Sunday, really, but it's a decision that has been a long time coming, and you know, the family I have probably committed most to is this family that I live with in Carton House as much as it is the family I have at home. And so, you know, we've put our heads together and tried to reconcile how we can best, you know, maybe cater for both.
So it will be after this weekend's game that you will reveal it?
Yeah, I think certainly early next week. I'd like to be able to take a deep breath on Sunday and then, you know, I know I can't continue to just go backwards and forwards, because to be honest, I've beaten myself up enough about this decision. I'm probably going to be the most pleased of anyone when it finally is made.
I'm glad he's not this indecisive when he's making decisions involving selection.
I don't think he is indecisive. I think he knows. I think it's just...
What do you think?
I think he's just playing the game that he's not going to announce it now, because even though it's only the USA, he doesn't want it to be a distraction. I think he'll go.
Do you think that is going to undermine Ireland for the next year ahead of the World Cup?
I don't think so. I don't think so. No, like I would say the players have a fair idea. You know, he'll have 2 World Cups. His home is thousands of miles away. You know, his family reasons want to go home. You know, I think...
But is his home a great place, is what we've been asking around the office.
New Zealand.
JP's been doing a lot of work. Like, New Zealand. Does he really want to go home and live in New Zealand when he could stay here living in prosperous Dublin? What do you think?
What if New Zealand got over us?
Well, JP's been looking.
Right.
Dublin is expensive, but it's not as expensive as Auckland.
Really?
Dublin's 66th on the list of the world's most expensive cities. Auckland is 61st.
Really?
Really? So why would you want to move back there?
Auckland.
Yeah.
Their inability to pronounce vowels correctly.
They've got Lord of the Rings, he points out.
Yeah.
3 films grossed under $2 billion. We've got Game of Thrones, which makes $1 billion every single year.
And we have a Hobbit as president.
Richie, that is unacceptable.
Surely that's libel.
That is unacceptable.
Surely.
They've got volcanoes.
Imagine being sued by Michael D. Imagine the humiliation, the shame.
Oh,
Fellow Bozeman, he wouldn't.
wow. He's not a real Bozeman.
He is.
He's a Galway United man.
He's a Galway United
But he
man.
goes to Bose more often than just goes to Galway.
Just down
Just
the road.
handy. Yeah.
But like, he ignores Pats for that reason as well. Because like, why would you go to a Pats game?
Wow. JP's also pointed out that they have volcanoes in New Zealand. So Joe Schmidt is basically at risk of being fried by lava at all times.
I don't know
And
if
they've
ever
got
shared a dressing room with-
ONC, how bizarre. Whereas we've got Picture This, which JP says is pretty much a dead heat.
The Chills.
How
They were
bizarre is
set
it
in New
amazing?
Zealand. They were decent. Do you know
Split
the
end.
Chills?
They had the chills and we the thrills.
Thrills were from a rugby school as well.
So let us know,
Gonzaga.
53106, give us some reasons for Joe Schmidt to stay in Ireland rather than going back to New Zealand.
Thrilled bass player taught IT in my college.
Did he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Wow, what a claim to fame.
That is a claim
Was
to fame.
that one of their gigs? Malcolm O'Kelly was there.
probably
The
says
rugby
a lot.
crowd liked him. You couldn't really miss him though. He's about 6'27". whatever
They've
that
got
is.
Shortland Street, whereas we have The Clinic, starring Amy Huberman.
There you go.
Shortland Street.
Oh no, Richie, no.
Fashion
No,
shops.
no, move on.
Can I not
Have
do
we,
the
have we
accents?
actually named the Ireland team
Yeah,
yet?
we do have team news. Rhys Ruddock will captain a much changed Ireland side in Saturday's test with the USA. The Leinster blind side joined in the back row by Jordy Murphy and Jack Conan. It's a side that shows 14 changes from the victory over the All Blacks. There's a second row partnership of Tyke Byrne and Ian Henderson, with the trio of Dave Kilcoyne, Niall Scannell and Finlay Beelum ahead of them. Ulster scrum half John Cooney will make a first start, and he's partnered by Joey Carberry in the 3/4. Gary Ringrose is the only player retained from last weekend. He's partnered in the centre by Ulster's Stuart McCluskey. Munster pair Darren Sweetenham and Andrew Conway man the wings, with Ulster's Will Addison starting at full back, and Sammy Arnold could earn a first cap off the bench. On the US side of things, they have former Munster youth player Paul Mullen starting at tight head, while Corkborn blindside John Quill earns a 30th cap, and former Blackrock College hooker Dylan Fawcett is on their bench. The US have registered wins over Romania and Samoa ahead of their visit to the Aviva.
So, sort of overshadowed by all this managerial comings and goings in football and rugby, Kelly Harrington is doing something pretty special this week.
Yeah, she's joined some esteemed company today. The Dublin lightweight became just the third Irish fighter to reach multiple World Elite Championship finals with a unanimous decision victory over Karina Ibragimova of Kazakhstan. Only Katie Taylor and Joe Ward have been to multiple finals before today. Harrington's guaranteed at least a silver in New Delhi and will face Thailand's Sudapon Sisondi, and that's in Saturday's final.
And she's done it at 2 different weights as well, so that's particularly significant. I think Kevin McMahon.
This is in an Olympic weight.
It is now. Yeah, this is Katie's old weight, Katie Taylor's old weight, lightweight. So you'd look at her now as a real chance for Tokyo at that weight. Kevin McManaman, I believe, has been working with him, the boxing squad, men and women, the last few months as a sports psychologist. So it's interesting to see what kind of impact he's making on that field now.
So that's early Saturday, is it?
Saturday, yeah. Today was 10 to midday, so I presume the final will be around Zoom.
We'll keep an eye on that over the weekend. I'll never forgive Mick for not getting the team to practice penalties before the Spanish game in 2002. Bit like a golfer not practicing his putting. What a joke, says Enda from Lavi. Listen, I'm not blaming Mick for anything in that penalty shootout. No, but it's all down to one man.
But as Dave Hannigan reminded me earlier, I was sitting beside Dave at that game in Suwon, and for extra time, Spain had 10 men.
Yeah, we never realised.
And nobody realised. Mick never realised. And I remember the players in the press zone, when it was mentioned to them, were baffled. So I think that was used as a stick to beat Mick for a while.
Well, this is why Kilban has such love for him, because somehow he never hung Kilban out to dry in the media, despite costing us our chance to go to a World Cup quarter-final.
Oh, probably a World Cup final if you look at it.
Well, I think,
look at the way that draw.
But if you talk about a game of inches, remember this was the time of the golden goal, wasn't it? The golden goal was in place for that. Remember David Connolly had a chance in extra time, and it was just literally about an inch away. And that goal would have been up there by Ray Houghton, with Robbie Brady's goal in Lille or something. Like, nobody remembers David Connolly now, and he was so close to putting Ireland in the World Cup quarter-final and knocking out Spain.
Well, speaking of Irish strikers, Seanie Maguire.
He won't play again until early 2019 due to the recurrence of a hamstring injury. The Preston striker suffered his latest setback 13 minutes into his substitute appearance in Ireland's scoreless friendly draw with Northern Ireland last week. Maguire only made his return to action last month, having missed the start of the season with another hamstring injury. And as Preston manager Alex Neil says, the recurring nature of Maguire's injuries is becoming frustrating.
Obviously with Seanie, I think he was only going to be on the pitch for about 12 minutes, so it's not as if he'd been playing the whole game and it was at like extra time or injury time and he'd done too much.
Meanwhile, Anne Downey is to remain as the Kilkenny senior camogie manager for a 4th year. The 12-time All-Ireland winner as a player, Downey ended the Cats' 22-year wait for an O'Duffy Cup with her first year in charge in 2016. She's also led Kilkenny to All-Ireland finals in each of the past 2 years. However, they've lost to Cork on both occasions. While the Irish team, Shane Lowry and Paul Dunn, are just 3 shots off the lead following the opening round of the World Cup of Golf in Melbourne. They're tied for 7th on 8 under par. The lead is jointly held by the teams of South Korea, England and Australia.
Good stuff, Richie. You'll be back throughout the evening with any of the live sport that's happening. Kieran, thank you as always. We shall talk to you again shortly. So we will be talking more about the Republic of Ireland job and who should be the man to succeed Martin O'Neill. We'll talk about that with John Giles next.
Off the Ball on News Talk.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products.
Down to Business.
This Saturday on Down to Business, we'll hear from pilots about their high-flying jobs. I'll be asking why more people aren't doing apprenticeships. Plus, I'll tell you what I really think about Black Friday and Cyber Monday.
Down to Business.
With me, Bobby Kerr, Saturday morning from 10.
On News Talk